Good morning and welcome to the Inspiration Healthcare Group PLC preliminary results presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Neil Campbell, CEO, and Jonathan Ballard, CFO. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thanks everyone for joining us this morning as we give you a run through of our results for the year ending 31st of January 2022. Just going to go through, I won't read the disclaimer, and we'll move on to just a little bit about our focus and what we do. For those of you who are new to the story, Inspiration Healthcare Group really focuses on the neonatal intensive care market. So we deal with some of the most vulnerable and fragile patients that come into hospitals, and they come in obviously at any time of day or night, any day of the year, and always pretty much unexpected. The sort of patients we deal with are premature babies down to 23 weeks gestational age, weighing 350 grams, and all the way up to sort of term patients who've had a difficult start in life. Our range and product portfolio caters for patients from even before the first breath of life, so even the first resuscitation breaths, and while the patient's being assessed, our products can support those kids throughout their journey into the world. A quick timeline of where we came from and where we are today. I set up the company in 2003 with three very good friends of mine, where we met in a company that sold neonatal intensive care equipment. In 2003, we were a distributor in the UK and Ireland. We found some amazing technology around the world and brought it into the UK, sold to the NHS, and we developed a small export business, really focused on a product that protected the newborn brain if the baby had a lack of oxygen at the time of birth, and that was for term babies. That gave us an appetite for further and further export and further expansion, and in 2015 we found a company to acquire on AIM, and we did a reverse acquisition. The company was called Intangible. They had some interesting technology that we still sell today, and after that acquisition we started reinvesting in the company, in R&D and our regulatory compliance. And when we felt the company was at the right size and shape, we started making a couple of acquisitions. In 2019, we acquired Biomedics Limited, a company making respiratory disposable products for premature and sick babies down in East Sussex. And in 2020, we acquired SLE Limited. SLE are one of the leaders in making neonatal ventilators. So these are the life support equipment that will actually drive the gas into the baby's lungs and take away the CO2. And from that point, we've actually been re-engineering the company over and now have a strong platform for growth. Where we are today, we'll run through the exact numbers from the financial perspective, but we're turning over 41 million pounds. We have over 200 employees, all but one working in the UK, where we manufacture neonatal intensive care equipment and supply that around the world under our own brand. And our own brand products now account for over 55% of our revenues, with exports again over 55% of our revenues. We have patents on 5 groups of our products, and we are well on our way to being a world leader in neonatology. We support ourselves and support our customers both pre-sale and post-sale with world-class education. We provide excellent tech support, and we also still are a distributor in the UK and Ireland, where it adds value to our company and to our customers. Now go through a little bit more about the highlights over the last 12 months. We've been concentrating very much on our exports, and this is obviously a strategic growth part of our business, especially from the synergies we identified when we acquired Biomedics and SLE. The acquisitions were really around a 1 + 1 = 3 model. Rather than taking cost out, we felt that there was actually an ability to drive greater revenues, and we're now seeing that across our export markets, where traditional SLE distributors are now selling the whole of the group's products, and vice versa. Traditional Inspiration Healthcare distributors are selling the whole group's products, and we're seeing opportunities arising to put those portfolios together and sell in larger quantities into some export markets, and that's what we want to continue going forward. We've successfully integrated SLE and biomedics into the group, so we now actually have one sales team, one marketing group, one R&D group, where we have engineers who were traditionally employed by SLE designing, developing products that are under the Inspiration Healthcare brand, and vice versa. We have one regulatory and compliance team, and we really are now one group. And therefore, we also see some of the synergies in the enlarged group from the back office side. So where we've managed to be more efficient with our staff resourcing, we've been able to use that savings in different areas of our business to drive growth, and those synergies are ongoing. We're making investment in a new manufacturing and technology centre in the UK. We're moving effectively from the SLE site in South Croydon across and just up the Purley Way, about 2.5 miles, where we're going to have a new manufacturing site for our ventilators and other capital equipment, and also an R&D centre focusing on medical technology and neonatal, especially around the neonatal intensive care. And we'll explain a little bit further our philosophy as to what we're investing in and why later in the deck. We had some registrations in China and Japan for the SLE 6000, our flagship ventilator. And not only did we have those registrations, I'm very pleased that our distributors, between them, placed stocking orders for around just under £2 million worth of ventilators. And our distributor in China has followed that up with repeat orders since then. So exciting to move the top of the range ventilator in our fleet into those markets. And Project Wave, our disruptive technology, has started recruiting in the trial. The first trial we've actually had ourselves under our own steam, and we'll update you a little bit further on in the deck as to where we are with Project Wave. On to the operational highlights. We've strengthened and expanded our management, so as we've looked at the resources we have, we've strengthened from it internally, and we've also taken on an external candidate as our new group head of marketing. And we've been integrating our branding across the group. So Laura has been instrumental in pulling all the brands together, keeping some of their identity. Obviously, we've got strong brands such as SLE. We don't want to lose that, but making sure they are seen as part of the larger group. We're very pleased to have been awarded a Queen's Award through SLE for their Oxygenie software-based algorithm. This is an algorithm that looks at the saturation of the baby's blood as prescribed by the physician by the bedside. So the neonatologist would say they want the baby to be at 95% or higher saturation of oxygen through a pulse oximeter. And then the ventilator, within safe limits, will servo control the amount of oxygen that's delivered to the baby in order for the baby to maintain that targeted oxygen level. Just a word on this. It was developed by Professor Peter Dargaville and his team down at the University of Tasmania. And following on from I've already mentioned Project Wave, that was licensed from Professor Ron Harper and his team at the University of California in Los Angeles. And to just put those two things in perspective, for a company of our size and shape, we do really work with global leaders, not just selling products to them, but these thought leaders have trusted their ideas within our group, and we're making those a commercial success. We've rolled out the group's ERP system into biomedics and SLE, and that gives better management reporting, better data, better visibility of what's coming down the pipeline, and makes us more efficient. And John can talk a little bit more about some of that. We've introduced a new and improved electronic quality management system throughout the group. We're a heavily regulated industry, as you can imagine, and making sure that we've got all the data regulatory filings and compliance is also equally important from the medical device regulations that we have to adhere to, and having a new electronic quality management system and document control system actually helps with the efficiencies of maintaining that compliance. We're also able to link that system to our ERP system, and therefore we'll see greater efficiencies when we bring in change of components and when we sign off new products, between being able our supply chain being able to buy forward with one set of documents that are all compliant. We've had a long-term relationship with a company called Macrel. Macrel are a Greek manufacturer of infusion products, pumps and disposable products for therapies such as parenteral feeding, chemotherapy, delivered chemotherapy drugs, etc. And we've renewed that long-term relationship through a new distribution agreement signed up this year. Last year, we talked about a charitable giving initiative that we launched and implemented, and that's now up and running. And we've adopted a number of wellbeing initiatives for our employees, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. Post year end, some of you may know of a company called Gene Drive PLC. They make point of care diagnostic equipment, and one of their products was looking at antibiotic induced hearing loss. This is for babies who have a genetic predisposition against a certain antibiotic, and antibiotics are commonly given on admission into neonatal intensive care to protect the baby from any infection that might be in the intensive care unit. Unfortunately, about 1 in 500 of these children given this antibiotic can become deaf, and this is an exciting test that actually can within a few minutes of admission into the intensive care unit can actually determine whether or not the baby is at risk from that particular antibiotic, and allows the neonatologist to change the prescription and give the baby a different drug. So exciting times for us when we launched that at the end of March, and we look forward to seeing the results in due course. I'm now going to hand over to John to go through the financial highlights.
Thank you, Neil, and good morning, everyone. So financial highlights for our year ended 31st of January 2022. As you can see, revenues totaled 41.1 million. That's an increase of 11% on last year. When mentioning last year, it's important to note that the group did benefit from 7.3 million one-off COVID-19 related revenue. And we also acquired SLE during July 2020. We therefore only had SLE for half a year in the group last year. So if you wanted to look at our growth on a pro forma basis, the revenue received from COVID-19 as a one-off almost replaces SLE for the remainder of the other half year. So like for like, the group on a pro forma basis would have grown at 11% also. Down to gross margins, despite cost pressures on components that the group is coming up against, and as is everyone in the world market due to COVID-19, it's pleasing to see that gross margins increased to 50.2% from 48.7% in the prior year. Now that really is a function of product mix. The group has moved more towards its branded products, now totaling 56% of our total revenue. The important thing about our branded products is that we control these 100%, we can sell these worldwide, and of course we achieve better margins. Our adjusted EBITDA was 6.4 million, an increase of 14% year on year, with a margin of 15.6%, and our adjusted operating profit stood at 4.3 million. In the current year, we did experience higher depreciation and amortization charge, twofold. One, we had a full year's amortization in relation to the acquisition of SLE. And as Neil mentioned, the group is moving to a new manufacturing and technology centre in Croydon. Therefore, we're experiencing greater cost and depreciation in terms of that site. Our underlying diluted EPS was 6.1 pence, prior year 7.57 pence. Prior year, it was higher due to the one-off COVID revenues of 7.3 million and the adjusted weighted average of shares in relation to the acquisition of SLE. The group has always been cash generative. At the year end, we stood at 9.3 million of cash. We also have a 5 million revolving credit facility available to us, which is currently undrawn. And during the year, we looked at ways in which we can spend our capital, and through that, we've been investing further in facilities, R&D, and our IT systems, as Neil mentioned. Our current R&D spend totals 9% of revenue across the group. And as I'll take you on to later, we spent 2.2 million in terms of capitalized R&D spend. And we took the decision, given our capital on the balance sheet, cash, that we'd spend a greater amount on R&D in order to fast track some of our product development. The final point on here is that we propose a final dividend of 0.41 pence per share. Over onto the next slide is the consolidated income statement. I've already spoken to all these points. One point to note is that our income tax, our corporation tax, is an effective rate of 9%. We benefit from two things here. One, we achieve a 230% allowance on all our R&D spend. And secondly, when the group acquired around 15 million of tax losses brought forward on the acquisition of Inditherm and SLE. And we've currently started to utilize those tax losses. So this slide gives you an idea. I mentioned we had supply chain cost increases, component and issues with components. So this slide really takes you through the problems we've been facing and what we've been doing to mitigate those issues. So challenges we've seen: electrical components. Obviously, there's worldwide disruption there. Things such as chips, electrical chips, we've found it difficult to obtain. Same for silicon moldings and the battery supply, all of things which go into our branded products. Things we've been doing to mitigate these impacts: we've been partnering greater with our suppliers, placing forward orders on products and advanced orders, looking at dual supply between different suppliers. We've also deployed our R&D team into looking at the older components, and they've been working hard in swapping these components out so we're not fully reliant on older and unavailable components. Shipping costs also, as with everyone globally, have increased, but as the group is now bigger, we've been able to tender for better rates, and we've been looking at consolidating freight between the companies where we can. The revenue breakdown slide gives you a snapshot of our revenue as at the year end between product ownership, the top line, and our market sectors, the bottom line. Within each section, the top line in the figures is this current year, grey, and the blue line is the prior year. So important things to pull out from here is that our branded products, as mentioned earlier, stand at 56%, giving us greater control, greater margins, selling worldwide. The group started as a distributor. These now stand at 33% of our revenue. And the technology support area, that relates to service, and we've also started offering a rental program in relation to our branded product, the Alpha Core system, which has started to gain some traction in the UK. Going down to the bottom line, the thing to pull from here is really the acute care market. The company's ambition is to become a world-leading neonatal critical care company, and it's pleasing to see that 73% of our revenue now comes from this area, the acute care area. Our service element of the business stands at 10%, and the infusion is at 17%. That's the growth of 16% year on year. Now, the infusion is in relation to the parenteral feeding products, and this relates to the Micrel contract that Neil spoke to earlier. The next slide gives you an idea of our revenue breakdown by geography. So as you can see, we're 43% domestic, 57% international. Domestic still being a very important market for us. However, following the acquisition of SLE and the cross synergies and being able to leverage SLE's distribution networks, Asia Pacific now stands at 25%, Europe at 15%, and Middle East and Africa at 13%. You can see the Americas are at 4%. This is the single largest, biggest market for us and the biggest opportunity. We are strategically looking at how to enter the Americas, and we're currently registering a number of our own branded products for sale in the Americas. We currently do have a couple of products that the group is selling own branded into that area. The consolidated balance sheet, key things to pull out here is that our intangible assets, these were increased due to the R&D expenditure and the capitalisation of that against development projects. Our PP&E is increased in relation to further investment across the group in terms of our IT infrastructure and also the new the new manufacturing and technology centre in Croydon. Right of use assets offset by lease liabilities have increased due to the leasing of the new Croydon site. And as I mentioned earlier, we've started to utilise our tax losses brought forward. So as such, we've recognised a £500,000 deferred tax assets on the balance sheet. Net cash strong at 9.3 million, no borrowings in the group, and net assets at 34.9 million. Finally, the cash flow. Again, you can see that we've generated cash from operating activities. As I mentioned before, the group has always been cash generative. 3.6 million generated. Halfway down, you can see the 2.2 million spend in relation to capitalised development costs for R&D and the increased spends on the PP&E. And also, we've had a full-year payout of dividends of 400,000. So despite this continued increased investment in the group to enable future growth, we still have that strong cash position of 9.3 million. So with that, I'll pass you over to Neil.
Thanks, John. So just here's a little graphic illustration of I suppose what John was just highlighting there at the end about our growth. We've always been cash generative. In fact, the only two times we've actually raised money externally was through for the acquisitions of Biomedics and SLE, where we raised approximately £22 million, both of which were oversubscribed. And we had about £2 million net that we put onto the balance sheet from those raises. All of the rest of the growth in the business has been self-funded from the original £20,000 that we started with back in 2003. So this is a very simple model for us that we invest in new products and new markets. We have acquired products and acquired access into new markets. Through our existing products and our existing markets, we grow. That generates profit, generates cash, and through that cash, we reinvest in our new products, new markets, and to acquire. And that model served us well throughout the last 19 years. So what's driving that growth? Well, the market's growing itself. The neonatal world market for intensive care equipment is growing around about a 6.5% compounded annual growth rate. So it's allowing us to piggyback on a growing market, which is a nice situation to find ourselves in. We're also doing that market penetration, so we're optimizing the opportunity for all of our products where we've got regulatory clearance. So, for example, in the European Union, all of our products are able to be sold into the EU. I mean, we're now looking at the best distributors in the group, or the right size distributor in the group, to absolutely maximise the different product opportunities we've got. And leveraging that route to market, working with our distribution partners, is allowing greater market penetration in the markets where we currently can sell our products. Onto a market development. I've mentioned that we're a heavily regulated industry, which is rightly so, considering the where our products perform in saving lives. And we're expanding the markets for our existing products through regulatory clearances. Many different jurisdictions have different regulatory requirements, although they're all on the same premise of safety. And we have to sometimes submit those in slightly different formats with slightly different emphasis on different things. The United States looks very much on biocompatibility, human factors, compared to Europe, for example. So we have to do a little bit more paperwork, a little bit more testing, and then we submit the products for regulatory clearances. And that will allow us new market development. Just to touch on the US, obviously COVID has been a bit of a problem for travel around the world, and unfortunately the US was virtually closed for us to be able to get to for a couple of years, and now we're starting to see that that's opening up, but that will allow us to prioritise which products go through the regulatory clearance and work with our distribution partner out into the States to launch those products over the next 12 to 18 months. John's also mentioned product development. It's important for us to invest in new product development for our existing markets through our R&D team. And currently we're spending around about 9% on new product development, some of which that's capitalized, probably about 50 to 60% is capitalized. But that new product development is important to make sure that we stay ahead of our competitors. And also we've looked to acquire, we'll still look to acquire either through a corporate transaction or through strategic alliances. And we have talked to some companies about looking at branding some of their products that perhaps they're not focused on in the neonatal intensive care unit towards us, and we could have a strategic alliance with those companies rather than doing a full corporate transaction. So we're very open to the way that we can acquire new products from other companies. Just going forward, here we sort of have a graphic illustration of the world market, and you can see for our products in the light blue in the center, the world market for our products is around $7.7 billion. So a company of our size, we've got plenty of headroom. It's still a large and attractive market, and it's growing. And just put some other dynamics and some numbers on this. Every year around 15 million babies are born preterm. There's 150 million babies born worldwide, and about 10% of those are preterm. Prematurity is the largest single killer of children under the age of 5 in the world today. But it's not just reducing mortality rates that's important, it's actually improving the morbidity, making sure these children who do survive come out in much better condition and can go on and have a full and healthy life. The costs for neonatal intensive care in the UK, and it's not dissimilar in other parts of the world, just to give you a flavour, is around about £1,500 per day, per baby per day. That £1,500 is in intensive care, where the baby will have full life support, and where the most fragile and premature babies will spend the first few weeks, maybe even months of their life. There is a step down to high dependency, that's around £900 a day, and when they're better and stronger, they can even step down to special care, which is around £500 to £600 per day. So this is a very, very expensive, these patients become very expensive, and it's not just the cost to society in terms of pounds, shilling and pence, as it were, but it's also that emotional roller coaster ride for the parents, the siblings, and of course the child themselves, that we want to improve to make sure that they come out of hospital and lead a full and healthy life. So again, a little bit about our investment for the future. In R&D, we talk about new product development. These are products that are really synergistic to what we've got. So the next generation of products in the ventilation, disposables. But although we are looking, and we'll talk about Project Wave as our disruptive technology, but where we do find technologies that could really be a game changer. We've mentioned the investment in regulatory, our new document management system, and investing for market access in the US, Japan, India, China, etc. And also we're now increasing our market exposure into the US to make sure that we are fully understanding the market dynamics and what may have changed over the last couple of years for the products we want to launch into the United States. Just going to touch briefly on our acquisition strategy. We can't just grow a company through acquisition, so this is to the side of our ongoing growth strategies. But we'd look to target companies that are revenue generating. That could be an early or established brand, but we don't want to be buying pre-revenue companies. And what we'd really like to look for is key features that would add to our product portfolio, fill the gaps and extend our range. So where we have products that don't quite have the full range, that we know that if we had an extra couple of pieces in the jigsaw, it would actually add value to our sales call. And those companies that could add capability to increase revenues through a sales or service channel, or reduce costs, maybe have manufacturing in-house. So if we were looking at an example of targeting companies, perhaps in the United States, where we would look to see whether we can actually drive our business, we look to find a company that's got products that are similar to ours, synergistic to ours, fill the gaps and add value to us. Also that we could take their products and expand their revenues through our European and Middle East and Asian distribution network. But also we'd look to see whether we can how we can add through their sales and service channel. And if they're a manufacturer, maybe we can actually manufacture some of our products in, say, the United States to reduce the cost of freight, which would have not just benefits in terms of reducing the financial costs, but also the environmental costs. Just going to talk a little bit about Project Wave. Project Wave is very exciting, although it's frustrating that it slowed down over the last couple of years due to COVID. Project Wave works on a premise of something that goes back into a very primal reaction in our bodies that actually, I believe, was first reported in racehorses in the 1700s in France, where a trainer noticed the racehorses were breathing more heavily, but were actually, before they really got running hard and weren't heavily sweating. And that reaction seemed to say that there was something that was triggering their breathing prior to their running very, very hard. I mentioned Professor Ron Harper from UCLA. Ron's work as a neurobiologist looked at the different receptors in the body and the different triggering mechanisms of the body towards the lungs. And he found that there's what's known as proprioceptors in the body, and they can be triggered by vibration. So these racehorses, going back to the 1700s, as they started running, they're causing different vibrations through their feet. That sent a signal to their brain to instruct the lungs to take more oxygen out through the alveoli, because the heart needed to pump the oxygenated blood to the muscles to move forward in the race. And that's very much the setup that Ron investigated with premature babies and the group out in Los Angeles. So by putting a little vibrating motor on the hand and the feet, we can stimulate those proprioceptors, and the thoughts are that will actually trigger breathing in the lungs. This is targeted at premature babies, and a little bit of physiology. Babies who premature suffer from a condition called apnea of prematurity. This is just because their brains and their bodies aren't fully wired the same way as a term baby would be, and they just stop breathing. They can have these periods of intermittent hypoxia for 5, 6, 7, 10 seconds, or full-blown apneas for 15, 20 or 30 seconds at a time, and then they'll start breathing again. That's not good for the developing brain, and what we believe is that by this stimulus, we can reduce this intermittent hypoxia. There was a small study done in California by a group in Los Angeles that looked at this early stage technology and found that intermittent hypoxia could be reduced by up to 40% in premature babies. We've taken the device and Ron's work and the work from Sri Kesavan in Los Angeles and made it into a medical device under proper regulated conditions. And we're now doing a clinical trial at the Royal Sussex County Hospital in Brighton, looking to repeat the work that Sri Kesavan and her team did in Los Angeles. When we had to stop because of COVID, the trials were all paused, all stopped. And when we came back to starting, we realised that there was probably a need to do further education and to restart the trial properly. We then spoke to Professor Heike Rabi, the principal investigator, and agreed that actually we would increase the scope and move the gestational age from 27 weeks down to 24. The more premature the baby, the greater the risks of apnea of prematurity. We did all of that work through the MHRA, through ethics committees, etc. And in autumn 2021, we were approved to restart the trial. We could then go back and do the training. So recruitment restarted late in 2021. And as of the beginning of April, we'd got 7 patients recruited into that trial. And we now, with the momentum going forward, we hope to conclude the trial. We hope that the team in Brighton conclude the trial late this summer or early autumn this year. We're only looking to recruit 20 or so patients in total. Excitingly, another part of our investment is a new manufacturing and technology centre in Croydon. We're investing about £4.5 million in a site that's 4,200 square metres. That's just under 50,000 square feet in old money. And we really are wanting to create a state-of-the-art facility. We make life support technologies, and this will really be a technology leading centre for manufacturing. We've taken the view that as we're refurbishing this whole building, we'll do this properly and make sure it's a low carbon footprint from the get-go. So we've got some initiatives here for putting solar thermal panels on the roof. So all of our hot water and some of the heating will come through solar thermal. We've got passive ventilation. We've got green spaces in the building. So we've got some trees inside the building that will actually absorb the carbon dioxide that the people who are working in the building will breathe out. Those will absorb, that CO2 gets absorbed, so we don't have to do less air changes to maintain a healthy environment for working. That obviously reduces the amount of heating or cooling on the air that's going into the building. The building's about 9 meters to the eaves, obviously a slightly sloping roof, and with that we've kept the roof the way it is, and we've put a mezzanine floor in to try and use as much light from the skylights in the roof across the whole of the working environment. So we've got a very natural, well lit environment with big windows now being put into the building as well, and low energy LED lighting. Electric car parking spots with electric charging, and all of the electricity being used in there is Rego-backed, so it's environmentally friendly generation. And we've decided to take the view that there'll be no gas in the building at all, so we're not using any natural gas for heating, so very low carbon footprint design. We've also designed it for staff wellbeing, so that, say, there's green spaces, we're putting new furniture in, including sit-stand desks, etc., to make sure that the staff can feel as comfortable as they can when they come to work. It's been optimized for efficiencies. We've got automated warehousing systems in there, so we can scan barcodes, and the parts can be robotically delivered to the warehouseman to pick and put them onto the production line. And we've taken the opportunity to look at improved customer education facilities, both pre-sale and post-sale, so we can bring our distribution partners into the facility, have classroom sessions and hands-on practical sessions in the centre, and even we can bring in doctors and nurses if to do the same thing on a slightly different slant than just talking about the sales opportunities. So very exciting. At the moment, we're just about to have our soft start. We're moving things in this week, and then later in the next couple of weeks, we'll have BSI, the auditors, come in to sign off the facility, and then during June we can really start manufacturing our products there. It's a very exciting time to be a real exemplar of what British manufacturing technology can achieve. It's important to mention ESG, and we'll talk a little bit about the environmental side first. The NHS has net zero targets for requirements for suppliers going forward over the next 20 years or so, and we're running well ahead of those requirements for suppliers where we are today. Our new manufacturing and technology centre, as I've already mentioned, has got a lot of environmentally friendly features in there, and that actually also helps us meet those NHS targets. We've been measuring scope 1 and 2 emissions already, we'll be reporting on those, and we're working with our manufacturing partners and distribution partners around the world to measure our scope 3 emissions over the next 12 months or so. We've taken some simple initiatives on environmental. We decided a couple of years ago that we would actually have an electric car fleet. 52% of our car fleet now is fully electric, 44% is hybrid. Some of our colleagues who live in more rural areas asked for hybrid cars just in case there was an issue charging the car. We've made good progress, we think, of having 96% of our car fleet either fully electric or hybrid. And as the infrastructure rolls out, we expect the number of fully electric percentage to increase and the hybrid to decrease. We're also looking at introducing a recycling reuse scheme for supply chain packaging, extending to all of our partners over the next couple of years. So really making some good progress on the environmental side of ESG. And that's not to take anything away from the social side. Internally on the social side, we really look at our employees and see how we can actually improve their working environment. And one thing that I think a lot of us have benefited from over the last couple of years is working from home. But we're a manufacturer, so we can't all work from home. We have obviously shop floor where we make goods. Has to be we have to have employees working in the factory, in the warehouses. But we're allowed, we've said to our colleagues that up to 40% of the working week can be working from home. So some of our more administrative roles, we have 40% of the team at home on any one time. We've also said that as a factory, we can't just allow people to always have the same day working from home. We need to make sure that from a health and safety perspective that we've got full coverage for all disciplines. And so therefore people do change which days they work from home on a flexible basis. But when we considered other aspects, we also thought, well, some people can't work from home on the shop floor, but they may benefit from a different style of working. So what we've also offered is all of our staff the opportunity to have a compressed 4 long day week. So Monday to Thursday working approximately 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and then get a 3-day weekend. And around a third of our staff have adopted that 4-day week, which they're finding beneficial to have a nice 3-day weekend. Saves them money and time on a commute, saves them some time around the house so that when they get the full weekend of Saturday and Sunday, a bit more relaxed. And for those of us who are working the 5-day week still in the normal hours, Fridays become quite a nice relaxed day, less meetings, and can finish things up that you were wanting to finish up by the end of the week. And again, going into the weekend a little bit more relaxed. We've had a lot of discussions around, I suppose, like every company, about mental health and how we can support the mental health and well-being of our staff. And we've adopted an app from a group called Everymind to provide support and well-being, just in general well-being to all of our staff, so they can go on the app and have a look at some support material that they may find useful. Last year, we also had a wellness day. We actually decided we'd shut the factory, shut the whole place, shut the whole company for a day. Not an extra day's holiday, but we actually closed everything for one day. No emails, no phones, and to give our staff a very much deserved long weekend. And that was very beneficial for everybody concerned. We've also looked at what benefits we've got in the group. We've adopted new parental leave provisions with prematurity benefits. We felt it was appropriate for us to be leading the way with prematurity. So benefits of, if any of our staff do have premature babies, they get extra benefits whilst that baby's in hospital. We're also very aware of the cost of living rises. We've brought in things such as salary sacrifice to buy electric cars and cycle to work scheme. So our colleagues can actually save money on national insurance. We've also got shopping apps where through a reward gateway, our staff can save 4% on shops such as Tesco's and Sainsbury's, and a little bit more at Marks and Spencer's and Curry's, those sort of things. Very much trying to make sure that we give our team the benefits that we can afford, but also benefits that will help them mostly. Externally, we've also been looking at our charity initiative. Last year, we set that up by donating £250,000 to CAF, the charity. Can't remember what's off the top of my head what CAF stands for. I'll have to ask John that. But they effectively
Charity Aid Foundation.
thanks, John. Charity Aid Foundation. They effectively administer money to charities on our behalf. We wanted to do very much this to be an employee initiative as well. So we've set up a committee chaired by Dr. Peter Reynolds, who's a consultant neonatologist who works for us 50% of his time, and four other employees see the applications from different charities. They discuss those and decide which ones of those charities we should donate to. So John and I and Brooke Knowlton, our COO, will sign off the check and ask CAF to make that donation on our behalf. But it's very much a staff initiative as to who we should be paying or who should we be supporting. And then finally, our outlook and summary. We've had a strong performance this year, 11% growth year on year. John's given you the metrics for where that built up from. But what is nice to see is that cash at hand is still 9.3 million, despite the significant investment made during last year. And that cash is all but all generated internally. We've never raised money for operations. As I say, we had a couple of million extra from when we did placings that were oversubscribed. But apart from that, all of the cash and the growth has been driven from our own profits. The integration of SLE and Biomedics have been finalised. Those synergies are now ongoing, both in terms of the efficiency savings and the sales synergies. We've faced logistical challenges, and we recognise those will be ongoing, and we've been managing those well, as John's already said. We've deployed our capital in core areas of business for long-term growth: new product development, manufacturing technology centre, and our IT support systems. All of these areas we feel will give long-term growth benefits to the company, and it was right to deploy our capital in these areas. And we've made good progress on ESG. Our environmental reduction, the reporting is moving ahead very, very well, and we've adopted several well-being initiatives for our team. And I suppose with leaving one thought here, we've always been agile in approach to managing challenges that we've faced, such as back in the day, such as swine flu, the banking crisis, and more recently COVID. And because of that and the investment in the new products manufacturing technology centre and IT, we remain confident in our growth prospects. That concludes the formal presentation, and we can now go on to some questions.
Neil, Jonathan, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just using the Q&A tab situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while Neil and Jonathan take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Neil, Jonathan, as you can see, we've received a number of questions throughout today's presentation, and thank you to all the investors for submitting those. Could I just ask you to read out those questions and give responses where it's appropriate to do so, and then I'll pick up from you both at the end.
Okay. Well, there's one that's there's a couple of questions on a not dissimilar theme about acquisitions. So if I cover those questions, such as how do we identify potential targets, and is our growth coming from organic or acquisitions? So just on acquisitions, how we identify. I've been involved in neonatal intensive care medical technology since 1991, so we do know an awful lot of companies. My colleagues and partners, senior management, have also been in the industry for a long time. So we do know a lot of potential targets from just knowledge of the industry. We don't retain a corporate finance house to look for targets for us. It's something we may have to if we want something very specific. But we do look at companies we know, look at their products, look at their size and fit, and decide whether or not we would like to try and talk to them. Having said that, we also get offered targets from corporate finance organisations, of which we will look on a more speculative basis. So there's a bit of both, a pull and a push. Market knowledge, I think, is the key one for us. And although we still look to acquire companies, we very much want to grow organically as well. We think we've got an amazing platform with the product portfolio we have, with the opportunities we have. We've hardly scratched the surface in the United States, as John's mentioned. That's certainly the land of opportunity for us. And if we can get the right regulatory clearances with the right support in place, we feel there's a huge opportunity to grow organically, and therefore acquisition opportunities will supplement that growth rather than underpin that growth. Looking at another question about the costs. There's a question about experiencing different costs through increased regulation in Europe for medical devices. Are there opportunities to buy products that competitors won't be able to complete the European regulations? I think yes. I think everybody in our industry is feeling the pain of increased cost of regulation. It's unfortunate that the European Union have decided that all products that were on the market will have to go through re-registration by 2024 or come off the market, and that's given a big squeeze on the resources in the notified bodies who allow us to place products on the market, the test houses who have to do the independent testing, and also the companies like ourselves who have to put all of that together for submission. So yes, there are increased costs. We're managing those as we go through, and we're looking to see which products of ours are actually end of life or close to end of life, where we might say actually it doesn't make sense to have those costs, and we'll move on to the next generation product sooner than later. And rather than having the regulatory costs, we'll put the investment into the sales and marketing activities to drive adoption quicker. I suppose the second part of that question touches on acquisitions, about are there opportunities to buy products from competitors. Yes, we've seen that. We have seen a few larger companies looking to say that some of these products are now orphan or legacy and look to divest them. We haven't actually taken any of those up, but we have looked at a couple of opportunities but unfortunately we felt that they didn't give us the right value. But if they came along in the future, we certainly would look at them. I'll just flick through some of the other questions. Should we talk a little bit, John, about Project Wave? Do you want to talk about Project Wave and then the next things? There's a question here that assuming the Project Wave trial is successful, what will be the next steps, and would we need to conduct a larger trial, etc.?
Sure. So Project Wave, as Neil mentioned, we're currently going through clinical trial for the device. That's expected completion probably during the summer, I would suggest, as we depending on the rate of recruitment for those neonates. It wouldn't be until that point that we get the results of the clinical trial. We don't know the results as the trial's completing. So assuming that the trial is positive, at that point we will then look to see how we can further commercialize the product. I don't believe, Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, that we will require any more clinical trial at that point in order to move further and commercialize the product. In terms of time scale, we're probably not looking at this financial year in terms of the commercialization of the device. It would more than likely be into the following financial year.
Yeah, so a good summary of where we are, John. Hopefully the trial will give positive results, and there'll be a step change in the way we can treat these poor babies who have difficulty breathing. There's a couple of questions on Gene Drive, and I'll cover those. There's one about update on early distribution, and another one about how sales are going. Just as a point of information on how the NHS, well, we're distributing this product in the UK, and how the NHS actually works. Whether it's frustrating or part of the charm of dealing with the NHS, it tends to move quite slowly. So even when you see a novel technology that's reported in literature, there's still a large element of sales and marketing that has to be done before orders come in, and that's regardless of the technology. It's not something's published and instantly the NHS finds money. Departments have to write business plans, have to look at the amount of equipment they need, how many patients they're going to be treating, what's the cost of it, is there going to be a saving elsewhere, etc., etc. Just like in any other business. So since we launched the product at the end of March, our sales team have been out and about talking to neonatologists and talking to the clinical staff about the opportunity. And we're starting to see interest in looking for those demonstrations. It's too early to talk about sales opportunities. It is literally just been 4 or 5 weeks, and obviously that was interrupted by Easter. So we are seeing interest in the products, but it's too early to talk about actually when sales will come in and at what level. But we are excited by the opportunity that Gene Drive gives us. It's always interesting to sell something new and novel that has potentially a profound effect on patient outcomes. So very exciting product, but a bit early to talk about sales opportunities today. Just looking at the last couple of questions. There's one on why are we so focused on reducing our carbon footprint? I don't think we're so focused on it. I think it's the right thing to do. I think when you have an opportunity to redevelop a factory and move to somewhere new, it makes sense to put in the best technology you can afford to put in at the moment. There is a greater need for reducing carbon footprints in healthcare. If you think about it, the NHS is the single largest employer in the country. Over 1 million people work for the NHS. All of those staff have their own views on the environment and how that we should be reducing costs of environmental costs and reducing wastage. And so all we're doing is actually picking up doing the right thing wherever we can. It's important to not only be seen to be doing the right thing, but to actually be doing it. So we're not doing this as a box ticking exercise. We're very much doing this because we believe that we can actually reduce the impact on the environment, and that will actually reduce our costs in the long term as well. Just trying to think, is there any other questions, John, that you can see that we haven't covered? I think there's one.
Competitors.
Yeah, there's one on competitors. And how do we differentiate against the larger players? Well, the bigger players in our industry are names that you're probably all familiar with: GE, Philips, Fisher and Paykel are a big competitor to us as well. Draeger, there's a large German company. Jettinger, a large Swedish company. They're probably the main brand names that we would see as competitors. And how do we differentiate? I think we just do things differently. We have a focus on the patient. We have a portfolio of products that are synergistic and allow us and our distribution partners to constantly talk to our customers about our products. We don't just sell capital equipment; we also sell consumables. So we have a different approach to customers. If a hospital isn't refurbishing the neonatal intensive care unit, it might not be looking for ventilators, but that would stop some of our competitors being so close to our customer. For us, we've got a lot of disposables that we can still talk to our customers about and build that relationship and really get their trust and be in a position to talk to them at the earliest possible opportunity when they are going to invest in capital products like ventilators. So the differentiation, I suppose, is more about the approach, the breadth of the product range, and the focus on neonatology rather than a focus on a specific technology. And that's how we've certainly been able to drive our business so far. There's one, I think, about what's most exciting over the next 12 months. I'll answer this, and then John perhaps can give his view of what's exciting. I think the really exciting thing for us is the opportunity in the new, due to moving into the new facility, new production lines, greater efficiencies. That's really exciting to really position ourselves for long-term growth. That in the short term, that's very, very exciting. But then really over the next 6, 12, 18 months, getting more of our products into new markets, getting registrations of our products. We've got a great product portfolio that's really is the envy of quite a lot of our competitors, the breadth of our portfolio. And as we go through with the regulatory clearances and give these products to our distribution partners, that's really quite exciting to see how we can grow with the products we've got. That's not taking away the other things like Project Wave, which is also exciting to find out whether we've got a product that works the same way as we think it works. But I think for me the really exciting things over the next 6, 12, 18 months are moving into the new facilities in Croydon, and then getting more of our products into the hands of our distribution partners to drive growth. John, is there anything that's exciting?
I'd echo you, Neil. I think during the past financial year, 22 and going into 23, we've invested heavily in the company, both through systems, through the new site in Croydon, through our personnel, and we really have given this company a good platform for scale and moving forward. So it is really exciting to be now in that sort of launchpad position moving forward, so we can gain those efficiencies through the group, having integrated SLE and biomedics completely. And also to echo Neil, we have a lot of exciting products. We have a great product portfolio, and we have some exciting products coming through our R&D team in terms of our own branded products. So it's going to be really exciting and busy next couple of years in terms of the group, but very much looking forward to it.
Thanks, John. I think there's going to just one last question that someone has asked about considering a share buyback moving forward. I think for me, we're too much of our company's got too much growth potential to use its cash rather than doing a share buyback. We're not big enough for that, in my opinion. I think it's nice to have a strong balance sheet. It means that if there are rocky times ahead, especially over the next couple of years, I think there'll be some not necessarily caused by anything other than the macroeconomic effects of COVID in the past 2 years and the war in Ukraine at the moment. So I think there's going to be some bumpy times ahead. So having a strong balance sheet is very important for us. But being able to deploy that capital in long-term growth projects is really, really important rather than doing a share buyback. So I would say that a share buyback's not on the cards anytime soon. We look forward to finding strong ways to deploy our capital in terms of growth opportunities for the company.
Neil, Jonathan, thank you very much for that. I think you've addressed all those questions you can from investors, and of course the company will review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to you both, Neil, could I just ask you for a few closing comments?
Yeah, thanks very much. And thank everybody for spending the time listening to us today. It's always a pleasure talking about the company. I've been involved since the start in 2003. And I hope now then pinch myself to see how far we've come. But what really excites me is the next few years. We've got a fantastic platform. We've got a strong product portfolio, a great team behind us, and we really are excited by the future for what we can achieve. It's been a great few years building the company to this stage, and I think there's a really huge. A really exciting opportunity for us to become a true world leader in neonatology.
Neil, Jonathan, thanks once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Inspiration Healthcare Group PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.